Barnaby, thank you so much for stopping by.
Great to be here.
Give me a quick few words about yourself, about your background, and specifically also about your role at NZZ.
Gladly. I've been a journalist for 25 years now, approximately. I spent a lot of time doing tech reporting, moved into data journalism, so not writing about the tech, but using tech for my reporting. And I joined NZZ 5 years ago to build up a team of data journalists, graphic designers, software developers, editorial software developers, and joined since September, last year, September, deputy editor of the newspaper, kind of bridging the gap of tech and product to the editorial side of things.
Help me understand what is happening in journalism. What kind of shifts are happening regarding how content is created, how content is distributed, and also how content is consumed by your readers?
I mean, there were so many shifts going on, and I'll just talk very briefly about the consumption, maybe the distribution. But what my main concern is, what are we doing in NZZ to make journalism better, and how AI is impacting that. So, I mean, distribution. I think one of our main concerns is, of course, we are still very heavily dependent on search. People find, I think 30–40% of our readers find us in search engines and content in search engines, and that is something that will be changing or is changing now. People don't go to Google anymore, or a lot of people don't go to Google anymore to find content and advice or whatever it is, but they go to ChatGPT or wherever, and they get their results there, and they predominantly don't end up then in the source, but they're happy with what they get in their chatbot.
So consumption has changed. You said about people don't go to Google necessarily to search. Some still go to YouTube to find information. That is still one of the major search engines. But large language models have actually brought about this major shift, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I think that's when ChatGPT arrived, that really just changed the way a lot of people think about accessing information and pre-processing what they need on an everyday life. But I do feel, though, and this is, well, it's very early days, but for news specifically, I think there is a chain. There is. I see many people who still there's a demand for brands, for trusted news sources. And it's going to be interesting to see how much news will be consumed via these chatbots as well. I mean, I think maybe not on text, but maybe audio or something that's something that we're moving into as well. So there is, it's early days, and I do feel for a certain type of journalism, let's call it service journalism. I think that people will predominantly use chatbots for that. But for news, for what's happening in the Middle East now, I think that's something that people would turn to trusted brands for.
Right. So it's about credibility and about knowing the source,
Yep.
and knowing that someone you trust has actually verified that source.
Yeah, exactly. And for us, the tricky part is to find how can we get people to recognize our brand when they're interacting with these chatbots. Maybe we need to start thinking about how does NZZ sound like? What do we really look like? So that we have various sort of touch points along the way, along everybody's everyday life.
So how do we come across when our content is consumed and when our sources actually stand for the credibility? What does that mean for the distribution? And I think you've already tapped into that by saying those are some of the questions that you're focusing on regarding distribution.
Well, we need to think, I mean, the NZZ, we are the oldest German language language newspaper, founded in 1780. So a lot of before the French Revolution. It's always quite mind-boggling when I think of that. And we have been for 2 centuries. We've been a very much text-based outlet. That's changing now. It's not all about text now. It's about how we process and how we display data, and how we have a lot of video content. We also have a lot of podcasts now. And we need to find ways We can use, there are so many different new channels that are being established. I mean, I'm thinking of cockpits in cars, thinking of these big screens that you see in stations. We need that. These are the touch points that we need to be focusing on today.
So you've become a content producer, and the way NZZ has still identified a few years ago, we are a newspaper, we are journalists that produce a newspaper. It is not so much about the product as a physical product anymore, as an online product. It is about the content, the quality of the content, and about the background info and the actual research that is carried out by journalists.
Precisely. It's about and we have a lot of readers that are concerned about the sources, and they want to understand why and how we came to the conclusions that we make, how we gathered this data. So we need to be as transparent as possible about telling this story, about not just the story itself, but how we gathered and created the story.
You've got to get people on board for this digital transformation. Yep. That involves a mindset shift, not just on the side of the readers and the consumers, but also on the side of your staff members.
Yeah, this is what, as I said before, this is what concerns me, or what I'm concerned with most of the day, is how can we redefine and create the most effective workflows within the editorial team, and basically improve the quality of our journalism.
You said this is data-driven. Help us understand how exactly.
We have a tool, an internal tool, for everybody on the editorial staff to understand all the various metrics we are measuring. What are our most loyal readers? What are they reading? What are the anonymous readers that we don't really know much about? What are they invested in? The ones that have just registered but are not paying for the product yet, what are they? How much time are they spending with this type of story? This is a tool that we have created for the whole staff, and you can imagine you have people that are they have a lot of knowledge and know how to. Somebody working for the business page, they know how to read a simple spreadsheet. Somebody working for another section of the newspaper might not. So we have to try to take everybody along with this tool. So we're sort of addressing various different needs. So that's the one side. We need our staff to really understand how our content, how our stories are being consumed.
So you're saying that the potential is huge, and the transformative potential that this has for the work of journalists regarding research, regarding the verification of sources. Yet, and that is the risk, if journalists are not on board, they're not educated properly to understand and use the tools, then that poses a risk.
Precisely. We spend a lot of time on educating and re-educating our staff at NZZ. So we have a lot of training programs on different levels, different skill sets. The team that I managed for a while at NZZ, we had a team of data journalists, a team of graphic designers, but even within these teams, there are different skill sets. So you have the ones that are really focused on visualizing data, and other ones that are focused on creating great visuals, illustrations. Their job is also changing now because we have LLMs that can help them along with creating illustrations. They have to do, a lot of people put a lot of work into creating illustrations that really match the story and the setting and the background of whatever research the journalists had been working on. So there's a lot of, within these teams, again, there's a very highly specified skills that we need to focus on.
If we're talking about the role that Salesforce plays, there is a lot of data that is involved, data that needs to be gathered, data that ultimately needs to serve your own purpose, which is, again, the purpose of your readers. Where does Salesforce come in all of this?
Well, basically, they help us understand, they bridge the gap that various data collection tools that we have. We have Piano and we have Snowflake that help us gather data, and Salesforce basically brings these data sources together to understand what the types of readers that we have and how long these people have been consuming our content, and how they're changing. That's where Salesforce comes in. Obviously something that I'm not involved in that much myself because I'm more on the editorial side, but it's an ongoing conversation with the sales team.
Can data sometimes be misleading? Can data lead to wrong decisions? Can data exclude certain readers, certain topics that you from the editorial side say we should not miss out on certain things despite data, despite numbers, despite figures going, you need to do things differently?
I mean, at the end of the day, we have our journalistic intuition, and we have the data that can sometimes reinforce that, and sometimes there's a conflict there. We should never really just solely trust the data. There's always we're in the middle of focusing on the type of content and how quickly we should change certain sections of our front page on our online section. And there is a lot of conflicting signals we're getting there. And we have ended up comparing the A/B testing data to go with our intuition, because we could not really understand the results the data was giving us. So yes, we always have to take a step back and see it as the data accompanies our editorial decisions. So never should be the final.
So data as an absolutely crucial basis, but data does not make decisions or should not replace your journalistic gut feeling, your instincts in making those decisions.
Never, because there is no such thing as a data set that's perfect. Data sets are always, there's never a complete representation of reality, if you want to get philosophical.
Consuming media from around the planet, I see some of them are relying on AI in their processes, with graphics designers, with some of the editors. Where does how is AI used at NZZ? Where do you see potentials? Where do you see risks? And how is that done in a responsible way that does not compromise the integrity, the reputation of the newspaper, that doesn't frighten or scare away readers, but that also helps you keep your staff members on board, that they're not feeling like they're being replaced or they're being imposed upon by AI?
We very early on, like many other newsrooms, we created our kind of publizistische Leitlinien, our guidelines to how we use AI internally. And very simply put, we said that the human should always be at the beginning and at the end of a story. Okay. Obviously, we should, in journalism, really consider AI as a tool. But it's a tool now that can go very, very far, because it can really produce content for our readers that we don't really have to even look at anymore. And I was quite skeptical. I'll just give you one example of a product that we've created that has been quite successful, although there is right at the end, there is no more human in the loop. Now, what we have done that's become a successful product is every story we publish, we give us a very brief summary of this story. It's in our app. You can just click the context button and you get this brief summary. I don't know, maybe you've seen it if you use our app. I was very skeptical because the LLMs do make mistakes. They summarize. There are spelling mistakes sometimes. We have not been able to get the German double S out of the system completely. So it's not, and we don't use that in Switzerland, that double S.
That is one of the issues that we all have with ChatGPT and other LLMs. Yes,
exactly. But the readers responded very, very positively to it because, and this was the reader feedback, is because they have the source of what the LLM's using. They have the original piece of journalism that's human driven, and it's not the, so we have that, so we've basically come to the conclusion is that as long as we can provide the original piece of journalism and show people this is, just by clicking your button, you'll get your brief summary, but be careful, that's just the summary of this is the real reporting. As long as we can provide that, I think we're on the safe side.
So you're honest and direct, saying you're managing expectations, and you're also stating there is an LLM involved, which might be hallucinating.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's a risk you're taking while reading the short summary, but not while reading the full article, which has been
precisely
man-made.
Precisely. That's man-made. That's verified. This is a human. That's.
Yeah. Has your initial approach, your publizistische Leitlinie that you mentioned, the guidelines, have you felt the need to adapt them? Because change is so rapid.
Yeah.
Currently, have there been changes that you wanted to make, that you needed to make?
Mm-hmm. That example I just gave you, when we released them, that was actually out of the question to publish something automatically, this summary of the content. We then revised them and said, okay, as long as we can publish the original piece of journalism with the AI content, that works for us. So we did revise our original document, and I'm sure there will be more revisions along the way.
How has the role, from a human perspective, from a journalist's mind, how has the role of journalists shifted? How do you think it is going to change over the next 2 years, 5 years?
Mm-hmm. Maybe look back 20 years. I've been in journalism for 25 years. I think in that time frame, I think we've had so many new tasks that have been sort of loaded into the job of the journalist. Simple things like when you finish a story, we also need somebody to write your little SEO title, your search engine optimized title, which is kind of a bit of a boring job, really. But there are so many of these bits and pieces that sort of been loaded. The journalist is now, most journalists in most newsrooms weren't involved with 20, 25 years ago. But a lot of these tasks are things that can now, thanks to AI, be automated. So I think the journalist's job will become much more exciting again.
And back to the essence of what journalism was truly about, and why most journalists actually chose their profession. So we're able, thanks to AI, to focus again on the core of our work.
Exactly. Verifying information, gathering data, analyzing it, and then also, I mean, we separate between opinion and fact driven pieces to then develop your opinion on these facts.
While keeping to trust your own experience and your journalistic instincts.
Yeah, exactly.
Barnaby, thank you so much for joining me on the show today.
Thank you.
And to all of you, thank you for watching, and see you soon.